Okay, so Alan, describe, please, for our viewers, what your interest in homesteading was when you first met me.
None. I had no interest in gardening, no interest in having a food forest, no interest in any of that stuff.
Okay, so now that we've been together for several years and we have 35 chickens and we butcher our own chickens and we grow our own food and we have a food forest and all the other homesteading type things, now what is your interest in homesteading?
It's the way of life. Having fresh eggs in the morning, having girls come out here and play with the animals and the chickens and collect the eggs and plant the fruit trees and watch the fruits grow. I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way.
All right, so if you want to convince your spouse to homestead the same way I convinced Alan here to homestead with me, I'm going to share exactly how I managed to do that. Let's go. Hey there, welcome back to Mini Urban Farm, a channel about gardening and homesteading in the suburbs. My name is Veronica, and on this channel I teach people how to garden, grow their own food, raise animals, all in the suburbs or in an urban environment, small space, any of that. So, as you can see in the beginning of this video, I convinced my spouse to homestead with me because he had absolutely no interest in homesteading or raising animals or growing a garden or any of that stuff when we first met. So the first thing that I can tell you, which helped him be convinced, is I shared why I wanted to homestead with him. Now this is going to be a huge one, and if you don't know exactly your why, I would encourage you to think about this one before you go on with the rest of these things. Because for me, homesteading had a lot to do with health and a lot of health problems that I've had in my family, and I've watched family members go through really big health problems, and I know that he had seen the same thing on his side of the family. All right, so when we were getting to talk about those things and I was sharing, how living this type of lifestyle was able to combat some of those things, he started listening. All right, and maybe that's not your reason why, but if it's getting back to nature or being financially stable or whatever the case is, all right, find your reason why you want to homestead, share that with your spouse, and have an honest conversation as to how homesteading, how raising your own food, raising animals, that sort of thing can help you get there. That was a huge step in him actually being convinced to start homesteading. All right, so the next thing I can tell you is start slow. Take it very slow, because even if you have this dream of homesteading and you have this dream of growing your own garden, or even if you already grow a garden or raise animals or whatever the case may be, all right, you might have that already solidified in your head that is something you're fully on board with. But if you start pushing that other person into that space, they're probably going to just put the brakes on as fast as possible because they are not there yet. Take it very slow if this is the first time that you're introducing them to something like this. All right, start with something small. Do baby steps in small little increments, all right? And just get them on board with one thing at a time. Don't try to rush them with getting chicks and then starting seeds and, building stuff and all the other things at once. Start slow to get one project at a time, which leads me into my next point, right? If there is something that your spouse has shown interest in, whether it's getting some animals or maybe growing some food or even building stuff, all right, things like that, just whatever it is that they're interested in, maybe go that route first before you start introducing into the mix the animals and the plants and all the other things. I know for Alan, for example, it was building projects. So he really likes to use power tools, and he likes that I know how to use power tools. And so when I said I really wanted to build a potting bench for my garden, he was like, sign me up. I can definitely help with that. Now, he was not into the chickens. He was not into growing your own food, none of that stuff yet. We didn't have any fruit trees that we have behind us, but he definitely wanted to help with my potting bench. So I said, perfect. We're gonna go and gather the materials, and I let him take lead on that project, and we have a potting bench now. And from there, we went with more raised beds and more trellises and things like that, which slowly started getting him more into, okay, we're building things for this lifestyle. We're building things for the garden, which then got him way more comfortable with the rest of it. The next thing I'm going to tell you is don't push anything on your spouse that they don't want to be a part of, all right? I'm still the main person who focuses on the garden. I do all of the planting, the seed starting, the harvesting. I do pretty much everything for the garden. And yeah, every once in a while, he'll come out and he'll walk the garden with me, and maybe he'll see that, we need some parsley for dinner, and I'll send him outside to go collect parsley. But other than that, I pretty much do everything for the garden. So don't expect your spouse to be on board with things that they really don't want to be with. Take a few different things. if it's growing food or raising animals or building things. There's so many different parts of homesteading, and homesteading is such an expansive type of lifestyle that you could have your spouse help with whatever it is. If that's, changing the outlets in a house that needs to be fixed up or whatever it is, that's still part of homesteading. So make sure that they feel included and you're not pushing it on them, because if you keep saying, I want you to homestead, all right, and they're just seeing things that they don't want to do, they're going to associate homesteading with something that they do not like at all. So allow them to have their own role, all right, the same way that Alan fixes stuff around the house. Alan, sometimes he washes the eggs for me, sometimes he helps collect the eggs, he definitely helps building the chicken coop, things like that he can help with, and then I do the rest of it. And that's a good role delineation for us. So find whatever that is for you, whatever works for you and your spouse, and you'll be able to kind of set that line on what they're comfortable doing and how far they're willing to get into this homesteading thing. All right, so next up is going to be talk about it a lot, all right? And I don't mean bombard your spouse with being annoying and trying to convince them 100% of the time, all right? You need to take a breath from that. But when I was trying to get him, into the garden or into this kind of lifestyle, I would work it into our everyday life, right? I would say, okay, we're gonna go to the gardening center to buy whatever. Oh, come take a look at the plants with me. Or hey, I need this project. And I would just include it in our everyday life. The same thing when we're watching TV, the kinds of things that I like to watch. I like to watch a lot of homesteading type documentaries and food documentaries, things like that. And so little by little, when he would agree to watch certain things with me, he would start realizing like, wait a minute, this is actually really important. It's not just me being annoying, he's actually hearing it from another person, he's actually hearing it from another source or watching it somewhere else, that this is actually a pretty fantastic lifestyle that we want to live. So between incorporating it into your regular routine, right, making this part of something that you talk about on a regular basis, and also having that other source of truth where you're not just the one shoving it down their throat, I do really think that that helped in getting my spouse on board with this entire lifestyle. Another thing that really helped was getting the kids involved in homesteading. Now, if you don't have kids, I don't actually have kids, but Alan has kids, so I have stepkids. And if you don't have kids or stepkids or anything like that, that can be either, a parent or a family member or whoever else, all right? But getting our kids involved in homesteading, all right, either by getting little baby chicks or having them go out into the garden with me and pick tomatoes or, harvest things. That really did help my spouse get into homesteading because he was able to see how much the kids enjoyed it, which then made him want to do it more. He wanted to participate in that. He wanted to be, included in that family time. And he just wanted to be able to give that to his kids as well. Not only that, but seeing his kids do stuff like kids, not just sitting inside playing video games or on their phones all the time or whatever it is, seeing the kids be out and about and, chasing the chickens or doing whatever it is, he really did enjoy that, and I know that that helped bring him around a lot. So what I would encourage you to do is make a list of everything that you'd be interested in getting into, whether that's getting animals, right? If you want to get chickens, if you want to start beekeeping, if you want to raise ducks, if you want to grow a garden, if you want to grow a food forest, make a list of everything that you want to get into, all right? And there's so many different ways to homestead, from learning how to sew to learning how to cook from scratch, learning how to can food, everything that you would consider homesteading, all right? Make a list of your top priorities to learn or to get into, and sit down and just kind of go through that list with your spouse and say which one of these things calls your attention. If that's beekeeping, then all right, maybe we get into that, start somewhere, and then you'll be able to go through the rest of the list and say, okay, well, my interest in this is medium or high or low, or I really have absolutely no interest in keeping bees. Like Alan said, when I first mentioned I wanted to get bees, but guess what? We will eventually have bees because he is definitely coming around, all right? So make that little list, talk to your spouse, and see what it is that's actually piquing their interest so you can start somewhere. Now, the last thing that I'm going to share with you is to be patient, because it can seem frustrating when your spouse is not coming around. I know it was very frustrating for me at the beginning when I said, I want to start with quail. And he said, oh, maybe, we'll see. And then eventually he said, okay, we can get 4 quail. And I said, 4 quail, that is not a lot of quail. I want like 20 quail. And he looked at me like I had 3 heads. Be patient, all right? Now we have 35 chickens, and we have, I don't even know how many quail, and we have more plants and animals that I know what to do with. But start somewhere and be patient, allow them to progress in their own time. The same way that you did not get to this decision to homestead overnight, they probably will not get there overnight either. Now, I have an entire video on how to homestead in the suburbs, so if you're not sure how to start homesteading or what things are included in homesteading, I would encourage you to check that out, because finding stuff like that was actually really helpful for me when I started getting into this lifestyle. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.